All righty, we are live on a Saturday. Welcome, dear Sherry. It's our unusual day for us to go live. Usually it's on a Monday.
It is. It is. Hello, 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 everyone. So, we've had some technical fun this morning. That's why we're a little tardy, but apologies on our end. Um, Best laid plans, and then technology takes over and says, yeah, not so much. So,
All right.
but glad you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here. We have an amazing guest today. So I met again about 3 years ago doing all the quantum work. The people in the network that you end up and you build during that time, and the training that I did, of course, obviously I'm wearing, my VivaRays. But why don't we allow him to introduce himself? Welcome to the stage, Roudy. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Just got back from a beautiful surf session this morning. The sun was glowing and so beautiful. The water was so still. So yeah, feeling
Awesome.
great.
Awesome. Well, welcome to our channel. I don't know how familiar you are with our channel or the community that we have set up. We have Beyond Nutrition. So, one of the things that we do or we speak to on our channel is everything beyond it, right? So, the light, the grounding, stress management, all of those realms of areas that do impact our health. But I know you have quite a success story or a personal story that you overcome. Why don't you share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be my pleasure. Um, so as a kid, I was the perfect example of a problem child. I suffered from intense headaches, agitation, eye strain, and I couldn't focus in the classroom. And my teachers were so quick to label me with ADHD and to force me back into a rigid educational system where all these artificially lit classroom felt like a prison cell to me. And from that very young age, I discovered that I had some capabilities that other kids did not have. And what that meant is that I could feel what other kids are feeling in the classroom. I could also hear the noise coming from the light bulbs. And I could also feel the torturing frequency coming from the fluorescents. And all I wanted was to break free and be outside in the sun because that was my sweet spot. Anytime I was in nature, I felt so inspired by the silent rhythms that I could hear internally and I could interpret in my own way and write poetry and feel deep inspiration. So I really wanted to break free from the classroom, and I developed a strategy over over the time. I became a troublemaker, and that was my only way to leave the class. And believe it or not, I was literally asked to leave 7 different schools. Now, fast forward a few years, I somehow landed myself in engineering school. But by then, I was completely disconnected from myself. I started living like a night owl, wired all night, useless and drained during the day. And I literally felt like I've been chewed up and spat out by life. Always tired, never up for much, constantly unmotivated, both in my social and my professional life. And I was literally in a state of fatigue, dragging myself through the day as if I was wearing a backpack full of rocks. Zero motivation. Now, I was working as an engineer for a couple of years, and my misery started increasing by the day. And the lowest point was when I was fired from my job as an engineer. I was in Africa. I woke up the second day, I was completely destroyed. I was laying down in my bed, staring at the ceiling, completely paralyzed with sadness and fatigue. And I literally could not bring myself up from bed. And even worse, I could not find a compelling reason to do so. I was wondering, like, why the heck would I leave my bed? Like, I was so depressed. And that was a very dark moment because the only thing I could think of at that time and in that specific moment was suicide. And I was literally thinking about the pain that I would cause my mom if I was to act on my thoughts. So it was a very, very dark place. And that same evening, I stumbled upon a quote from Albert Einstein, who played a fundamental role later in my understanding of light and health. But this quote said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I looked at it and it literally struck me like a bolt of lightning. It shook something inside of me. And I instantly realized that it was time for me to take a big leap and take action and do a big change in my life. So I decided to pack to pack all my bags, and I wanted to travel. I had no plan where I'm going. I had one plan that while I'm going, no matter where I am, I'm going to be studying the work of different holistic doctors, health experts, health gurus, so that I could make myself feel better. Now, during my travels, I was feeling very optimistic at first, but a few months in, I start feeling completely lost. Now, why is that? I was learning from so many different health gurus, and each one of them was telling me something completely different. So I was in this scene of eat this diet, no that diet, no take this supplement, no that supplement. And it was all too much and extremely confusing. And no matter how many diet I tried, no matter how many expensive supplements I took, I wasn't getting any better. So I sat down in desperation. I thought to myself, oh my God, why does it need to be extremely complicated? There must be an easier way. And then a few evenings later, I was lost in the vastity of the internet, just roaming YouTube. And I found this video by Dr. Jack Kruse called Artificial Light is Killing Us. It was 1 a.m. in the morning, ironically. I'm bathing in all this artificial light, the blue light shining on my face. And I'm watching this video and Jack Kruse is talking. My mind was super foggy and everything he said literally flew over my head. But the one thing that stood out and the only sentence that I remember the second day is the following. He said, you can't get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick. And it kept coming back to my consciousness throughout the day. And I'm sitting down with a friend and I'm sharing with him about this video that I watched. And I'm contemplating with him about how could I get out of my light environment? I mean, is that even possible? And my friend is a backpacker. And he's like, you got to check this website called Woofing. And Woofing is a very interesting website where you go find all these farmers who are doing permaculture, biodynamic farming. Most of them live up north in a way that is super aligned with the land and with the rhythm of nature. And you drop an application so that you could go live with them in exchange. You help them, you give them a hand in exchange of accommodation and food. So I got super excited. I found this farm up northern Quebec. I saw this beautiful family and I'm looking at their pictures. They're glowing. I'm like, whoa, like, do these humans even exist? So I applied right away and I got accepted. And I took the ride, went up northern Quebec. And for 6 weeks, I was sleeping in my tent. And I was exposed only to natural sunlight during the day and fire and candlelight during the evening. These guys did not have artificial lights at night. And literally, within a matter of 3 days, I felt a transformation that I had not felt in 25 years. And it was mind-blowing because it took me back in time and space to the time when I was 3 or 4 years old, where I could instantly tap into the silent rhythm of nature and once again feel that inner inspiration and aliveness. Everything was clear to me. I knew who I am. I knew what my purpose is. I knew why I'm here on earth. And I could literally feel, waves of inspiration driving me to take action and to feel alive. It was a very powerful experience. And the magical thing is that my intense headaches and eye strain literally disappeared. And having been told that I am a night owl, I started to sleep shortly after the sunset to then wake up before the sunrise at dawn. No alarm clocks, feeling super rested, energized, and infused with an exhilarating sense of joy. I mean, I was on top of my world. And also, having been told by my teachers and by society that I am an ADHD person who cannot focus, oh my God, I was like literally getting praised by all those farmers telling me, whoa, the level of focus that you're showing in the field is phenomenal. They were like impressed. And I was looking at myself for the first time from a new lens. Oh my God, I'm not the ADHD person that they labeled me to be. And I could focus. So that was fascinating because it just literally shifted my self-image for the first time ever. I was around people and in an environment that allowed me to thrive. Now, I did not change my diet. I did not take supplements while there. So that was like, whoa, that was like something that I have not heard about before, that this type of transformation could happen as fast and without all these complicated stuff. But even more puzzling than this, when my experience ended, I came back to the city. And guess what? Within a matter of few weeks, literally, I fell back into my old terrible routine of staying up late, being exposed to artificial light, experiencing intense pain, headaches, eye strain, and waking up feeling tired and depressed. So that was mind boggling. I did not expect that. And when I was at the farm, I could not even imagine that I could come back to that state. So I had to take action right away, and I decided, all right, I'm gonna go and experience another farm. And I went into this cycle of almost 4 years where I would go to farms and experience exaltation, ecstasy, and instant transformation in as short as 3 days. And then I would come back to the city, and within a few weeks, I would lose those states. And being the curious soul that I am, I really wanted to understand the essence of this transformation. Why is it that I'm experiencing and I'm feeling great on those farms in as short as 3 days? And I remember that I got engaged in a meditation technique called Vipassana. I don't know if you heard about Vipassana. Have you?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Vipassana is a meditation retreat where you go sit down in silence for 10 days. You're not allowed to write. You're not allowed to engage in any form of exercising. And for about 12 hours per day, you're sitting in silence and you're observing your breath, you're observing your sensations. But one thing I was doing there is that I had that one question written upon my heart: what is happening? And in that silence, I could clearly hear through my inner ears that it was all about light. The word light kept flashing into my consciousness. However, being an engineer, I was trained to look at light as something superficial that makes vision possible. It's something simply that people control by turning the switch on and off, and that's it. It doesn't go beyond that point. And even visiting the work of all the different health gurus, none of them have been trained in medical school to look at any of the forces of physics, like light, water, and magnetism, as the primarily forces that are actually instructing all of our neurochemistry and all of our biology on what to do. It's literally the force that is creating the energy to manufacture all of the neurotransmitters that we need. So for the first time, I was looking at things from a whole new perspective. And then I sit down and I land reflecting on the powerful equation from Albert Einstein, E equal mc squared, which I have always known, right? As an engineer, I studied this equation. But you know what? I've never looked at it the way I was able to see it in that moment. And I'd like to break it down. E is light. M is matter. And when we say matter, think our bodies, our organs, the earth, everything around us. And C is speed. Now, when I was looking at this equation, it sounded like it's coming out of a science fiction movie, because what I was starting to see is like, oh my god, this equation is telling me that light and matter are exactly the same thing, and that when light slows down, it turns into matter. And I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. And for the first time, I come back to an inner knowing that I've already known as a kid, that we are light beings, and that not only light profoundly influences every aspect of our life, but it is the nucleus of life itself. And then I start learning about the substance in the eye called the vitreous of the eye, which is composed of water, collagen, and acid. And its unique role is to slow light down. And when light slows down, it gives the energy to all of the hormones and our brain chemicals that control what? That control the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act, right?
Yep.
Now, so many people today are coming to an agreement with the statement, we become what we think. So if we think about it, if light is playing a fundamental role in controlling all of the brain chemicals that allow us to elevate the way we think, and therefore elevating our feeling, and therefore elevating our action, means light is creating reality. And the type of light that gets in our eyes is deciding the level at which we're playing in this reality. Are we playing at a very low level and seeing everything through a very dark lens? Or are we playing through a divine level where we have the capacity to see everything through the eye of source? And that is the essence of what light and the relationship to light means to me. And it literally decides how well we sleep, which mood we're in, how much energy we have, how well we can focus, and how much we get done. And unfortunately, in our society where I grew up, where most of us are, 95% of us, we're living in cities where we get exposed to very little sunlight during the day, and we are bombarded by junk, artificial lights coming from our phones, from our screens, from all the LED lights that we're using in the kitchen, in the bedroom, down the mall, and the airports. And the problem with that is this light has not been designed to take in consideration how light interacts with our biology. And this messes up with our bodies at a subconscious level. And this is even more dangerous than something messing up with your biology at a conscious level where you could recognize it. Because of how light interacts with our nervous system and endocrine system, it instructs the autonomic nervous system in such an automatic way that we don't even realize it. And when we are living in those boxes and in those restricted realities, we have no sense of awareness of what awaits for us if we take a step outside of that box and experience what nature has meant for us to experience.
And I think that's maybe important to break down too, Roudy, real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's important. So we're talking about light, but how does this light signal at the various points of the day? I know in the BNC community, I have broken it down into like the barcode of light. But for those of you, or for those that are following us here on YouTube that maybe don't understand the difference in, as the sun is coming over the horizon, the UVA, the UVB, all the different signals of light, and why is it beneficial to get those depending on our neurotransmitters and our circadian rhythm?
Yeah, I mean, there's 1,000 different reasons, and there's no one biological process in the body that is not impacted by that signal. But I always like to break it down in a very simple means, right? Most of us today, what do we want? We want to function at our best. We want to sleep really well, to wake up feeling energized, having enough energy to tackle the day, to do what we really would love to do during a day, and have enough energy to continue doing those things without feeling exhausted. And getting a great night's sleep at a consistent basis and waking up feeling refreshed and energized are not things that happen by chance, like so many people think. They're literally controlled by a universal law. And this universal law ties to light and darkness because it's a circadian rhythm. And basically circadian comes from the Latin word circa and dia, which means approximately a 24-hour. Now, if you think about it, we all go through this 24-hour cycle, whether we're animals, plants, or humans. And we're all living on the earth that rotates around itself and around the sun. And that means that the day becomes night and the night becomes day. And this is an unescapable daily change in the environment. And in order for all of us to adapt and to be able to work with this daily change from a behavioral perspective, we've had to develop an internal clock that sits in the center of our brain, and it determines when we go to sleep, when we wake up. It controls our energy level, our detoxification system, our bowel movement. And what's really this clock is doing, it's responsible for timing those functions, all of those functions, to an optimal time of the day or the night during a 24-hour cycle. Okay, so you and I and every human being, we all go through the same 24-hour cycle. Some of us make the best out of it, others really struggle. Why is that? Because if the body is receiving the right signals, it has then the capacity to orchestrate all of these functions in such a way that the body could perform, requiring much less energy and much less time. Just like if we think about our businesses, we are not meant to do everything at the same time. There's a time and space for everything that we do. And in business, some of us go and we use, like a project management software that allow us to stack and break down all these different projects into smaller chunks and program them in such a way that we tackle the first one, then we go to the second one, and there's a sequence. And this sequence is controlled by time. It's the same thing in our body, literally. When this sequence, which is controlled by the rhythm and time, is working properly because it's getting the right signals of light and darkness, we then have the capacity to perform at a much higher level. And then the body will require much less energy and much less time to engage in any biological process that it's required to engage in, whether it's digestion or reproduction or bowel movement, whatever it is. So if you think about the circadian clock, it's literally creating structure and coherence between the billions of our cells and creating kind of like a harmonious symphony, right? And just like in a musical symphony, in order for an orchestra with many musicians, in order for them to really produce high quality harmonious music, they need to be guided by a conductor that reads the musical note and instruct those musicians on what to do. Now, if we think about our body, this musical instrument, it works in a very similar way. In this case, the conductor is this master clock that we're talking about that sits in the brain. And this master clock is reading the musical notes coming from sunlight and from darkness. And it's responsible for telling all of the musicians, think about your organs, your glands, the millions of clocks in your body. It's responsible for telling them when to do what and how to do it. And if this instruction is happening properly, the body produces harmonious music in a form of high energy level, good digestion, great repair and rejuvenation system, great mood, etc. But if the conductor is confused, then it manifests in every form of unbalanced effects that we call chronic disease. And what this central clock really relies on, in its most simplest form, without going too much into complicated stuff, it relies on two things: morning sunlight, especially in the first 2 hours, and consistent darkness after the sunset. Now, I want to re-emphasize the word consistent because it's this regularity of continuing to expose yourself to morning sunlight at the same time and to darkness at the same time, that will make all the difference between a powerful circadian rhythm and a destroyed one, right? And it's not enough to go watch the sunset one day and then skip 3 days. It's also not enough to block artificial light one day at 6 and the other day at 8, just because, one day you're hanging out with friends and you don't want to seem weird around them. The key thing there is this consistency. And the moment you tap into this consistency for at least 3 days, you will start finding that a lot of the stuff are going to transform in your life. And I think there's something magical about these 3 days. If you come back to my story, it was 3 days that it took me to tap into that transformation. And after years of working with so many people, I would observe and see that those who are consistent and that would implement those simple 2 steps, after 3 days, they will come back and report phenomenal results, whether they were struggling with insomnia or digestive issues or skin issues or anxiety or depression. It doesn't matter what the unbalanced effect is. What I have observed over the years is no matter what it is, the consistent ones would start experiencing a massive shift after 3 days. And I guess there's research from Dr. Sachin Panda that actually validate that point. I believe what I read is that they took a group of people who believed themselves to be night owls, and they took them out camping in an environment that had no artificial light whatsoever. And in a matter of 3 days, literally, their melatonin cortisol cycle shifted to the place where it's supposed to be. And what that meant is that all of them were sleeping shortly after the sunset. They were waking up early in the morning. Their peak alertness and focus and productivity was peaking shortly after the sunrise. So this also like validates the point that it literally takes 3 days for the circadian clock to reset itself to the point where it's supposed to be, and therefore the tremendous results are countless. We can't even count them.
And I think also when people not only are realigning themselves and they're consistent, I call them my non-negotiables, right? I'm out there every morning. I'm putting my feet to the earth. I'm getting my sunrise. It is, for me, it's my non-negotiable. But one of the other sides of that is the hormone aspect in regards to the relationship with the sun and our hormones. And you touched on it briefly with the cortisol aspect, because many people are, looking at their cell phone first thing in the morning, or they're rushed in the morning and they're overstimulating this cortisol. And then they're just really not in balance the rest of the day because they've shifted this. And also the aspect of even diabetics that have, high glucose or the dawn effect first thing in the morning, just simply getting this nature's relationship has tremendous improvement on their glucose readings. But the other aspect is the food. You had talked about the organs briefly, but also the code that we're getting from the food in relationship to being aligned on that aspect too, right? It's not having certain foods, when we break it down on this level of what we're consuming and the signal that we're getting, we can misalign that as well. Why don't you briefly go into the hormones and the shift and the improper lux of light, first thing in the morning with like cell phones and stimulating that cortisol too, but also the food side of things and how that can help our organs, because many people are also fasting through the morning or doing, workouts or things like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the moment we wake up and we go outside and we witness the rising sunlight, what happens there is that there's a rise in the blue, green, and violet and ultraviolet frequency in a sequential way that happens over time. And that stimulates the production of cortisol and ACTH in a very healthy way. So there's a healthy rising tide of cortisol from the adrenal gland that allow us to feel alert, energized, and focused. But not only this, in this specific moment when cortisol rises, there is an internal alarm clock that is set that will dictate when melatonin, the sleep hormone, will be released about 12 to 14 hours from this specific point. And this is why it's very important to get the morning sunlight or the signal of light from nature as early as in the day as possible, because this will allow you also to go to bed when you are supposed to go to bed, and and it will allow you to, so like for example, like based on my own experience, and it got validated by some of the studies that I've seen, anytime I go to bed between 8:30 and 10, what I notice is that the quality of the sleep that I get is beyond what I could have ever gotten if I went to bed somewhere after 11. There's something super magical about going to bed before 10 p.m. And what I also notice is that my body requires much less sleep when if I would hit bed before 10 or 11 p.m. At night. And I guess I was seeing some other studies showing that anytime you go to bed between 8:30 and 11, that window of time gives you a very powerful boost in your sleep, so much so that like they compared it to other people who went to bed at 11 p.m. And what they saw, that if you were to go to bed before 10, even if you sleep the same amount of hours, you're not gonna wake up feeling as refreshed, as energized, and as rested. Even if you're sleeping 6 hours, for both in both scenarios, the 6 hours that you get before 10 p.m. is radically different than the 6 hours that you will get after 11 p.m. So that ties also to what you do first thing in the morning, because really, like, the timing of when your body naturally would feel it wants to go to bed is tethered to the timing of when you get that morning sunlight first thing in the morning. So the earlier you get it, the better, because that is going to lead you to naturally have the desire to go to bed earlier at night, supposedly that you're not bombarding yourself with a lot of artificial light after the sunset, because this is going to destroy your melatonin production and shift your circadian cycle forward, and making you want to go to bed later and wake up later the second day. Now what happened is, for most of us, we come back at night and we expose ourselves to a lot of artificial light, and this artificial light destroys melatonin and increases cortisol. uh, Fritz Hollweg is a German scientist. He published some studies in the 1970s showing how sitting under artificial light um, causes a massive spike of cortisol and ACTH. And when this cortisol spikes at the wrong time of the day, it just disrupts everything. Because again, we spoke about the importance of timing and how anything we engage with has a time and place. And if we do it at the right time, even it could be the same action done at the wrong time, it will lead to unbalance. The same action done at the right time will lead to ecstasy and exaltation. So, in that sense, when we're sitting around artificial light at night and cortisol and ACTH is spiking at the wrong time of the day, not only is it going to disrupt our sleep and our ability to repair and rejuvenate at night, but when this happens repetitively, we start waking up the following morning with much less cortisol in our system. Because if you think about it, we are depleting our cortisol reserve from our adrenal gland by constantly secreting a lot of cortisol at the wrong time of the day. And what that means also, that we wake up feeling sluggish, struggling with energy, and that's when most people will reach out to coffee and things to artificial things to energize them.
Stimulate.
Yes, that do not really work over a long period of time. It's not sustainable. And then if we want to take it a step forward, or perhaps a step back, because it starts from this place, we have the master sex hormone pregnenolone, which is made in the inner membrane of the mitochondria, and it's literally made in response to morning sunlight. And this pregnenolone is the raw material from which cortisol is actually produced, and also the sex hormone estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone are made. And when we first wake up in the morning and sunlight enter our eyes, the body converts some of the pregnenolone to cortisol, and that is the healthy tide of cortisol that I was speaking about, that will give us that alertness, that energy, and that will reset our cycle for when melatonin will be released at the proper time at night. And technically, under balanced conditions, the body will convert the rest of the pregnenolone to youth and sex hormones. Hormones like estrogen and progesterone are important to keep your energy levels up, and they're also crucial to maintain youthful looking skin and hair, etc. However, if our body is sensing a threat in the environment, take the example of, I don't know, like our ancestors being in the forest, they're foraging and they run into a tiger, the pregnenolone gets converted from fertility and youth pathways, because of course you're not going to be engaging in fertility action
with the tiger coming at you.
Absolutely. And you want to make the best use of your muscles so that you can fight and flight, and so they can run. So pregnenolone gets converted into cortisol so that you can so that you can run and survive. And the interesting thing is that, you know, psychological stress can cause the same effect. So you know, thinking unbalanced thoughts and dwelling in fear and doubt mentally could also cause you to run away from that imaginary tiger. But even more interesting, junk light is perceived as a threat by the mitochondria and by the body. And we talked about Fritz Holwich. So what's happening is that as a result of being exposed to the wrong frequency of light, the mitochondria divert pregnenolone from sex pathways to more cortisol. And this really start taxing the sexual gland, leading to brain fog and sluggishness. And I happen to talk a lot on women health shows, and we talk sometimes about, you know, menopause, but what happens is that during menopause the ovaries slowly start producing sex hormones, but in healthy women the adrenal glands are supposed to compensate by secreting small quantities of estrogen and progesterone to ensure that the transition goes smoothly and you don't experience those intense hot flashes, inability to sleep, weight gain, etc.
And that's where I throw my story into the mix, because I had a hysterectomy at 29 and I don't do HRT, but I am very respectful of all of these circadian signals, right? So the adrenals, and I also had thyroid issues. I had Hashimoto's, but like you said, I was up late. I was under junk light. I was not trained or understanding to how to connect with this nature side of things. And so I was very misaligned at that point. The more I got aligned, the more the body shift and the adrenals were able to take over the hormones. I don't have night sweats. I don't have hot flashes. I don't have any of this. But I think there's also the point of cortisol is not a negative thing. We need cortisol, but when we look at the hormonal cascade, too many people are shifting that pregnenolone to the right-hand side, which is where the cortisol is, instead of allowing it this left-hand side of the sex hormones and, you know, that aspect, men and women, because you also got the testosterone in there too. But also the aspect of people aren't connected enough to, and we speak a lot in regards to circadian, but when we really open that up as well, because you made the point in relationship to the core body temperature. And when we aren't aligned, right, we're two modernized humans, and I like my heated home too, right? But when we look at that infradian system and how to align to the temperatures as well, because the force of nature is beyond just the light and the dark, but the hot and the cold. So when we raise our core body temperature at certain points of the day, or we misalign that temperature, and maybe that's something we need to go into also, is when we look at the body temperature. So it's not only the light that's going in our eyes, but we also have the thermoreceptors and aligning with the seasons as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important point. And I like what you said about cortisol, because it is perceived as something bad. But again, there's nothing as bad or good in nature or in our biology. It's all relative. And what the body is really looking for is a balanced interchange between melatonin and cortisol. So when this cycle is happening in a balanced way, and there's an equal interchange between those two opposite hormones, then things fall in place. However, if you think about it, for most of us today, we are living upside down, and this cycle is completely messed up. Now, why is that? Because we are living in indoor spaces that are literally 100 to 1,000 times less bright than what we get from sunlight during the day. And what this means is like the body will literally perceive it as a cave when it's actually sunlight outside. And it will put us in a state of fatigue and tiredness, and where melatonin is starting to flow in our body at the wrong time. And on the opposite side, we are also living in spaces that are 1,000 times brighter than a full moon at night, right? So if you think about it, when you are in a space that is 1,000 times brighter than a full moon at night, and you're in a space that is 1,000 times less bright than sunlight during the day, we are literally living an upside down lifestyle that is causing the melatonin cortisol cycle to flip upside down. And no wonder why we are so wired at night, so stimulated, unable to sleep well, and therefore the body is not able to clean itself. The brain has no capacity to clean all of the toxins. None of the organs could actually perform true cleaning and detoxification unless it is actually tuned into the light and dark cycles of nature, and able to perform at the right time of the day. So when we talk about temperature, it's very interesting because in similar ways, anytime the light is increasing in our environment, the temperature is also increasing. Whereas anytime the light is decreasing and declining, moving towards darkness, the core body temperature is also declining. And light and temperature, therefore, are working together as very powerful signals to instruct our body of whether we need to be alert and working and performing, or whether we need to be preparing for a restful night's sleep. And that ties a lot to like timing of food and timing of exercise. Because if the tendency and the natural tendency of the body is to increase its own core body temperature when the light is rising, that will mean that any activity that we engage with that will also help and increase in core body temperature will contribute to a better circadian clock and to better alertness and energy levels during the day. What are some of those activities? Exercising first thing in the morning will increase your core body temperature. Eating a big breakfast will increase your core body temperature. Taking a cold plunge will increase your core body temperature, because anytime you go in the cold, there's a rebound effect where your body is actually needing to increase its core body temperature to warm itself up. And what you see today is, again, the same thing that you do it at the right time, in the right way, and it's going to produce a massively and a tremendously different quality of results than if you were to do it at the wrong time, in the wrong way. Because even exercising is great, but if you do it at the wrong time, if you're going to exercise in the gym under artificial blue lights at 8 p.m. at night, you're telling your brain it's daytime because of all of this blue, and you're spiking your cortisol at the wrong time. Second, you're increasing your core body temperature up at the wrong time when the body is supposed to start cooling down to prepare you for a restful night's sleep. And I'd like to connect it a little bit to, seasonal stuff, because if we look at any phenomena in nature, it's very simple. It ties down to the same formula that everything in nature is composed of opposite forces that are interchanging in balance. Think about the 24-hour cycle. We have the day and we have the night, and our capacity to live a joyful, healthy life is to the extent of our capacity to align ourselves to that balance interchange between the opposite forces of nature. Now, if you extend it a little bit to a greater cycle, now we're talking about the seasons. We have the winter and we have the summer. Now, how does the body know that we are approaching winter time? There are so many different signals that will lead the body to know. One of which is naturally, if we were to be in tune with nature as we approach the winter, sequentially from the fall until the winter, the day is getting shorter every single day by a few minutes. And this is subconsciously signaling to the body that we are shifting into a new season and that we are approaching the winter. If you take the wolf as an example, a wolf in nature, it does not wait until the first snowfall until it grows its fur. Now, how is that possible, right? Like, how does the wolf know that I should be growing my fur? Well, many different things, but first of all, the eyes of the wolf are in tune with the light and dark cycles of nature. So the wolf is predominantly not putting any sunglasses during the day that are blocking the right light frequencies to enter the eyes. The wolf is also not hanging around at night watching Netflix and scrolling on social media and cooking meals at 9 p.m. around intense artificial light. And as the wolf is not engaged in those unbalanced actions, it's staying in tune with the length of the day, right? And that length of the day is telling the wolf the day is shortening, and therefore the winter is approaching, and therefore it's time to make some physiological shifts that will allow the wolf to adapt to that transformation from fall to winter, and it will allow the wolf to be able to survive. No animal in nature will be able to survive if we put those animals under the unbalanced conditions of comfort and artificial lights and all sorts of things that we've created for ourselves as a society. So if you think about it, it's not different for us as human beings. We are not allowing our bodies to know that the winter is approaching because we are disconnected from the light and dark cycles. Also, we are disconnected from the magnetic field of the earth, which actually fluctuates and changes from one season to another. The wolf does not wear a rubber band shoes. We do, unfortunately. And that also disconnects us from another very important signal. And what this means is the winter approaches and none of us are prepared and the body has not made the physiological adaptation that are necessary for us to thrive during the winter, because the winter is a time when we are supposed to experience deep healing, rejuvenation, and repair. In fact, autophagy happens a lot deeper during the winter time when it's colder, when there is less light in our environment compared to summertime when it's warmer and when there's a lot more light in our environment. And autophagy is, apoptosis and autophagy are like cellular cleaning and cellular death. It allows the cell to clean themselves and also allows the cell to get rid of parts that are no longer useful, allows them to die and create new ones that are useful. So it's almost like this phenomena that allow us to clean our space and to keep ourselves fresh and energized. And that is supposed to happen much greater during the winter time, considering that the body actually knows that it's winter. But unfortunately for most of us, we put ourselves in environments and situations that are very contaminated and disrupt our natural ability to adapt to the time of the day as well as to the time of the season. And if we take a step back and we zoom out a little bit, we spoke about the balance rhythm interchange between polar opposites, and we said that every phenomena in nature is composed of polar opposites that are interchanging in balance. We spoke about the time of the day being like the circadian rhythm being a balance between day and night. It's similar with the infradian rhythm. It must be a balance between winter and summer. And we can't expect ourselves to behave in a similar way when it's winter than it's summer. And look at nature and you will realize right away that nature does not behave in the same way. If you observe a flower and the cycle of life of the flower, it's completely different in summer, in the spring, in the fall, and in the winter. Every season has its own purpose, and it serves a greater goal in the life cycle of the flower.
And that's where in the wintertime, like you said, the flower, but you can also extract that to food, right? When we're supposed to have more autophagy and we're supposed to be more leaning into the fat to create, fat and protein in order to create an energy, is going to end up and be different than in the summertime when food is of abundance, right? We're not growing that food in the wintertime. Now, I understand not everyone, is as crazy, I guess I'll put it, as myself, or maybe as in tune and aligned is a better terminology, because I will end up and eat based on the seasons, but I will also be the one that's outside doing, instead of doing a cold plunge in the middle of summer, I do seasonal temperature or seasonal exposure. So I'm outside still doing that grounding because, like you said, the magnetic shift is changing, whether it's the middle of July or middle of January. I realize we're only in December, but and so I'm still out there, even when it snows, even when it's cold, for a little bit of time, so that my body is under that exposure. And that makes a whole difference in the way that my body ends up and perceives things. Whether it's aligned, the circadian, the infradian, but also, like you said, with the forces inside and creating that light. When we're exposed to that cold, it is creating an internal warmth. But if we break that down, it's a light that is created internal. And so that helps going into the wintertime, which many people don't end up and understand, kind of also tying in, the hormones and everything else as well, that when you break it down on a molecular level, how that cold exposure is creating an infrared energy, which is creating an infrared light, which is then end up and helping the seasons.
Absolutely. That light that you're creating as you hop in the cold is infrared light, which will eventually affect the electron transport chain in the mitochondria and improve your energy production. Also, if you think about it, really, like the whole metabolism of the body makes a switch from being primarily reliant on light during the winter to becoming a lot more reliant on temperature, and temperature becomes an absolutely non-negotiable thing to align yourself with during that time. And during the summer, we all know dopamine, the hormone of motivation, allow us to think outside of the box, to have the energy and the capacity to take a step back and to see the bigger picture in life, and to have the motivation to go after what we really want in life. We know that sunlight and UV light provide the energy for the conversion of different amino acids in the eye to produce dopamine. And there's an increase of 200% or 150% in dopamine when you expose yourself to sunlight. But also equally, if you think about it, cold exposure increases dopamine by 250%. And what's the common thing between cold and sunlight? The increase in dopamine happens in a very sustainable way, where the dopamine is increasing, and then the decline is very, very slow, and it doesn't go below baseline. Much of the addictive technology that we are exposed to all the time, that creates this fake spike, fast increase in dopamine that end up going way below baseline and end up causing people to engage in addictive behaviors of wanting more and more. Things like drugs, things
Sugar.
like sugar, screens, artificial blue light, porn. All of these things are dysfunctional ways of this intrinsic need for us to feel happy, because we are wired to want to feel happy. And when we are in an environment that is not inspiring us to seek that happiness from greater sources that are more sustainable, we end up falling into the trap of seeking that happiness constantly and becoming addicted to things that will end up controlling us, and that will end up, like, one of my greatest goal in life is to come to a point where I'm in full control of my body, and where I could command my body to masterly achievements. And unfortunately, if you're living in a state where you're constantly reacting and you are jumping from one sensation to another, you end up being a slave of the body. You end up being a slave of technology and all of the things around you, and that is really a state that leads you to misery and what I call, um, like, slavery.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and on that aspect, you are a slave essentially to it, because it's all about also the time under that curve when you're creating these massive peaks with the artificial, and then you're getting that reactive side. It's no different than, diabetics with their blood sugar. When they end up and they rise it and then it falls, then they're getting cravings, they're getting hunger, right? And same thing on these artificial stimulants in relationship to light. You are trying to continue that stimulant, but when we're aligned and we're creating this natural rise, this natural hill, if you will, the bell curve, that time under it is going to end up and be longer and more sustainable. So one of the other aspects that we haven't gone into yet is your company that you created in order to help people align, which is the VivaRays that you and I are both wearing. I know there's several out there, but why don't we speak a little bit in regards of the blue blocking glasses and the difference, and why why you founded VivaRays and are passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to my story, after experiencing those states of flow and infinite energy on the farm, I never thought that I would feel depressed and disoriented again. And it was the case, because when I came back to the city, I started feeling depressed and disoriented, and I went from a harmonious and blissful symphony to a completely dissonant and tuneless one. And literally, my sleep and wake cycle were out of tune once again. Now, uh, at this point, I knew that I was doing the right thing in relation to exposing myself to the right frequency of healthy light during the day at the right time. But I had no escape, or no ability to escape that junk artificial light at night that was messing up with my body. So I asked myself a very important question. I said, is there a way to have the freedom to live in the modern world while being in alignment with ourselves and with nature? And this question led me to uh, an extensive journey where I was researching some solutions, and I discovered about blue blocking glasses. And I literally, my first exposure was, I was in an optometrist office, and he told me about this blue light blocking lenses. I believe I paid for that around $300 back then, and I was so excited because I finally thought, okay, I have this tool that will allow me to block artificial light and solve my problem. And what I quickly realized is that those clear lenses were a marketing gimmick, and they blocked the blue purple light up to 420 nanometer, which is not emitted by LED bulbs and screens. LED bulbs and screen, they start their emission at 430 nanometer, and they peak at 455 nanometer. So the unwanted light was passing through. It was like as if you were trying to rinse your quinoa in a pasta strainer. Literally, the quinoa would end up passing through the hose because you're using the wrong filter. So they were basically pointless and inefficient. And I went on a tour because at that point I bought a spectral color mirror because I was really frustrated that I paid $300 for something that doesn't work. And I went on a tour to different optometrist offices, and I started showing them that, hey guys, like, why are you selling this? Like, doesn't work. And most of them were in complete shock, to be honest. Like, they've never sat down to measure and to see what's actually happening. So at this point, I learned about those yellow tinted glasses, the blue blocking glasses, and I bought some. And I started wearing them and I felt like instant relief. Why is that? Because I wasn't experiencing any headaches, any eye strains. I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing. But within a matter of 3 days, I start feeling unexplainable drops of energy, and I didn't know why. And also, what I also noticed is that when I'm wearing them at night, I still felt wired. I did not feel that deep desire to go to bed at a time when I'm supposed to go to bed. So this felt really frustrating, and I wanted to figure out what's happening and why am I really feeling exhausted during the day when I wear these glasses. And what turned out that eliminating blue light is not the answer to all of the problems. And you know unlike like so many people think, blue light is not bad. It's neither good or bad. It's also something that is relative. And blue light during the day is extremely important. It stimulates our brains more than any other frequencies of colors. It stimulates different options in the eye that are connected to our ability to produce energy and to elevate our mood, and also to regulate our circadian rhythm. So melanopsin is connected to blue light, and melanopsin plays a role in regulating our circadian clock. So basically, what I quickly realized is the effect of blue light really depend on the time of the day that we are exposing ourselves to it. Also, it depends on whether or not it was proportionate and balanced with the other frequencies of color. And the answer to this problem became very simple, because most of the blue light we're exposing ourselves to come from man-made artificial light, which I like to call junk light, and I think it's a lot worse than McDonald's, to be honest. And
because
and
it's everywhere. I mean, it's hard to escape it as modern humans. McDonald's you can drive by, right? But you go into the grocery store, or you go into, the office, or technology, like you said, it's not that the blue light is bad, but it's the wrong time of day. Kind of like how I said, as that sun's coming over the horizon and that barcode, as you get closer to the solar noon, that time frame in the middle of the day is predominantly blue light, and it is beneficial. But go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great thought you added, because you're right. I mean, McDonald's, you drive through and you could choose not to. But with junk artificial light, it's like it's becoming hard to choose not to. Yeah, right. It's everywhere. So sunlight is very rich in blue light, obviously. But the one difference between sunlight and artificial light is that sunlight is very balanced and proportionate, and the amount of blue is always balanced and equal with the amount of yellow, orange, and red. And in LED bulbs, we see this 455 nanometer spike in blue violet. And this blue violet alone, it's not something we've been exposed to in nature in isolation, even during the day. It's an alienated frequency from our system. And what studies have shown is that it's a very degenerative frequency to the cell, and it causes inflammation, it increases oxidative stress, and therefore it leads to eye strain, headaches, agitation, and so on. So this explains also like why a lot of people struggle under low light. Now the equation completely changes at night, because at night there's no blue light whatsoever, there's no green light whatsoever, and very small amount of light at night, especially in the blue or green light, can disrupt our sleep, circadian rhythm, dopamine cycle, etc. So if you think about it, the sun naturally changes its position in the sky throughout the day until it descends below the horizon at nighttime. And if you and I were to be outside, our body would be exposed to different color temperatures of light depending on the time of the day. And it will also be exposed to different amounts of blue light, which will regulate our circadian clock and will either promote wakefulness or sleepiness. So getting exposed to blue light in the same way all day, or even trying to block blue light in the same way all day, like I was trying to do in that second trial, is tragic, because it's like living under a sun that emits the same light day, evening, and light and night. I mean, you can only imagine how destructive this situation could be. And this is what's happening to most people living indoors. But also, it's also happening to some people who are trying to block blue light in the same technology all day, because it doesn't work that way. We need that variation of light. So if we wanted to live in harmony, I start thinking, well, we need a dynamic solution that provide our brains and our eyes with the right light information at the right time of the day. So as I kept searching for the company that is producing the right blue blockers, and I was testing a dozen of them, I started seeing that 95% of the companies that I've tested were either blocking too much light or too little light. And that's when I met with a doctor from Florida who works in a lab, and him and I were brainstorming and bouncing ideas for about 7 or 8 months to try to develop the pigmentation system that will allow us to have control of exactly how much we want to block and exactly how much we want to allow. And after about I don't know, dozens of experiments, we were able to come up with the exact pigmentation. And it's composed of 3 different lenses for 3 different times of the day. And the ones that I am currently wearing and you're currently wearing, those are the daytime ones. And when we engineered those, we wanted to tackle the problem of the 455 nanometer. However, we did not want to eliminate blue light like so many of the other blue light blocking glasses were doing. So we came up with a technology that is capable of decreasing the sharpness of the 455 and making it really proportionate and balanced with the green and with the yellow. And with that in mind, now we're decreasing that inflammatory frequency, and we're taking a step towards balance. That is not utterly full balance, because still, if we're in an indoor environment, we're still not getting the full spectrum light that we're supposed to get. However, we're also not getting that inflammatory light that we're exposed to all the time during the day. And we're not eliminating a lot of the blue that will cause us to feel fatigued and drained. And when I start trying the daytime glasses, I realized, okay, I'm not feeling eye strain, I'm not feeling headaches, I'm able to maintain a good energy level throughout the day. And of course, one of the things that I combine wearing the glasses with is being self-conscious and deliberate about taking some breaks every 2 hours or so. After the sunset, and of course, it's very important to be outside during that time and to witness that slowly fading light, directly or indirectly, because the core message is that light is information, and we need that information around that time of the day to signal to our nervous system and circadian system that the day is ending, so that our inner pharmacology start preparing the right hormones that will put us to sleep and that will allow us to sleep well and rejuvenate. And if we were to be outside and then we come back home, most of us will be exposed to the alien sun coming from the bulbs, and that will ruin the whole interchange and the whole balance that we're trying to achieve. So we came up with the evening lens technology, which you could seamlessly clip onto the same frame, so you don't need different frames. And this has been engineered to mimic the color temperature of the bonfire at 1900 kelvins, blocking all of the blue and only the highest frequency green, and strategically keeping enough green so that we can still function, socialize, do our work, cook, do whatever task we want to do in the evening without feeling extremely sleepy. And the idea came from, evolutionally, we've evolved around the fire. And when we start a bonfire, we all feel relaxed, we feel calm, we wind down. Yeah, we have enough energy to dance, cook, socialize, and still do our thing. And especially during the winter time, one thing I was struggling with before is we had 2 technologies, the daytime and the nighttime. And I would put the nighttime technology at 4 when the sun sets to continue a consistent infradian rhythm. And then I would have the desire to go to bed by 6. So it wasn't very practical, and that's why we created the evening as a transitioning system.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the nighttime one, those are designed to be worn 1 hour before bed, and they block 100% of the blue, 100% of the green, and they decrease the brightness by 15 to 20 times, which is a very important feature that also will make a lot of difference compared to other technologies that are not intrinsically designed to decrease brightness efficiently. And why is that? Is because though the frequency of light and the color of it um, has a deep impact on our circadian clock, in a sense where high frequency light like blue and green has a greater effect on our circadian system than low frequency light like red and orange. Also, the brightness of light and the amount of light that lands onto the retina has a profound effect on shifting our circadian biology. So the key takeaway there is we want not only blue and green light during the day, we want bright light. And that's why it's important to be outside and to get that 100,000 lux during the day. And at night, we want the opposite thing. We want to eliminate blue, eliminate green, and decrease the brightness as much as possible.
So yeah, so I don't have my VivaRays here, but I will tell you that the first time, and this is I contributed this to Becky wholeheartedly. The very first time I wore the blue blockers, but specifically the red ones before I went to bed, I literally thought I had taken a sleep pill. It was like my body just went thud. Like it was like, I am tired. I am tired now, and I'm going to bed. It was the craziest feeling that first time that I experienced it. But since then, obviously, now I depend on them, right? But we get questions, both Becky and I, as coaches now. So I'm going to ask you the questions to see kind of what you think. So there's the Iris software that people can put on their computers. And we get that question, okay, so I have the Iris software. Do I still need to wear my blue blockers?
Yeah, that's a great question. The truth is that nasty frequency that is high in blue light at 455 nanometer not only comes out of the screen and the phone, it equally comes out of your LED bulbs that you may be using at home, and perhaps you may not, because perhaps you're aware and you made that switch, but your neighbor is using. It's down the road. It's at your friend's house. It's in the airport and in different locations. So anytime we are exposed to any form of artificial light after the sunset, it's very important to be wearing the glasses. If you are at your home and you have full control over your light environment, like I do, then obviously I live in a cave and I don't wear the glasses. When do I wear the glasses? I wear the glasses when I don't have control over my light environment. And given that consistency and regularity are the most important thing in circadian biology, then I would not want to ruin all the great work that I have achieved throughout, you know, in my practices by going outside and being in the wrong light environment and not having my glasses on. So the idea is anytime you're exposed to any form of LED lights, fluorescence, whether it's coming from your light bulbs or from your screen, the frequency is equal and it's impacting you in an equal way.
Yeah, and that answers the next question that Becky and I both get is when I'm working during the day on my computer, but I have the window opened or cracked, right? Do I still need to wear my blue blockers, right? And kind of answered that.
Well, that's a bit different because
Okay.
what I tell people is if you are in an environment during the day where natural light is predominant, is literally dominating your artificial light exposure, then you don't necessarily need the glasses. What I tend to see is I sometimes find myself in those environments, and I would be sitting in an office where natural light is predominating artificial light. But after some time, if I start experiencing any form of eye strain and so on, then what I would do is I would put the glasses for like 30, 45 minutes and I would remove them. And then if I had the need and I felt like some intense headaches and migraines, I would put the glasses again. So, but generally speaking, outside of that, if your natural light is dominating artificial light during the day, then you don't necessarily need to wear anything.
Do window screens filter out natural light?
Absolutely, yes. Windows are very toxic in the way they filter out artificial light because they remove a lot of the invisible portion of sunlight, and they mess out a lot
The,
with the red light as well. So always while being behind a window, being aware that it's very important to have the window open. They filter out 100% of the UVB, but they keep some of the UVA. And one thing I learned about UVA and UVB is like the balance of both together is very important, because it turns out that UVA controls how much actually you can make vitamin D from UVB, and UVA somehow is a frequency that holds your body to not over producing vitamin D from UVB. So in summer, oftentimes when people are behind windows and they're getting only the UVA without the UVB, they're actually messing up with their vitamin D levels. And also considering that anytime you're behind the window, you're taking away a lot of the red and the infrared, which are the regenerative frequency that are supposed to balance the UV and to allow you to produce the necessary circulatory melatonin in your body that perform the deep cleaning of any cellular damage that may happen from UV exposure. It becomes even dangerous to be sitting and exposing yourself to direct sunlight behind windows when the window is not open.
And one of the other questions that I have gotten personally is, okay, so I'm wearing my blue blockers and I've got fluorescent lighting. Like, isn't it filtering on the sides from up top? Like, is it really doing what it's supposed to do? Am I still getting that filtered in around the glasses?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically with light, I wish I could demonstrate with actually like showing you what's happening, but let's take this surface as an example. If you shine a light on this surface from a 90-degree angle like this, that's the intensity of light is going to be the most intense from that angle. The moment you start increasing that angle like this, the light spreads out over a larger surface and area, and the intensity of light decreases profoundly. And what this means is, in relationship to the glasses, when the light is coming at an angle that is parallel to the eye, it's literally not doing anything, because it's spreading over a very large area and the intensity of light become close to zero. But when it's coming like this, literally, it's the most intense.
it's dispersed across the lens of the eye.
Yes.
Gotcha. It's always a good question. I love when people delve into those deeper questions, right? That they're really trying to understand it. We have a live question here. Do you suggest a certain type of bulb if working nights inside?
Yeah, I'm very hesitant with suggesting light bulbs at night, because there's not yet any bulb that I would feel good using and suggesting. And the reason so is like all of the bulbs we're seeing right now, they have this narrow spike in red light. And to me, that is problematic, because if that narrow spike in blue light is causing problems, because it lacks the full spectrum and the proportionate balance that we see in nature, then why not? The red light will be causing the same problem because it's lacking the proportionate balance that we see in nature. And most of the bulbs we're seeing today, they have this narrow spike in red. Nevertheless, having the red light bulb is going to be massively better than having a white LED light. So if you have no other choice and you really need that light, and you don't have access to candles, then I would say that red light would be the next better thing to use.
And that kind of goes into shift workers, right? One of the things, because let's say hospitals, let's say, you know, any of those that we need people on shift 24 hours, right? We're not able to get off of it. Obviously, I would tell them, you know, find a different shift. But reality is healthcare especially has to run 24 hours. So that's where I will recommend even the blue blockers, wearing those through those hours and blocking that blue light via that way.
Absolutely. That's very important.
Yes, I know there were a couple of other. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something really quick. For night shifters, for example, what I usually recommend them, if they're in their night shift, then that's a great time to wear their evening lenses. And then like about 30 minutes before their shift ends, switching to the nighttime lenses and making sure that when they go outside, even if the sun rising, that they keep the nighttime lenses until they reach back home, and then they black out their room and they go to bed, because really seeing the sunrise there is going to be extremely detrimental to their own nocturnal rhythm.
Yeah. So a couple other questions that actually come through earlier was how old you are, but otherwise justifying the VivaRays, and you kind of went into this in regards of the manufacturing aspect, because they are a little bit more costly. So someone that is maybe on a budget that can't have the 3-in-1, I love mine because even with all three of the lenses on, they are very lightweight. I took them when I went to Utah a month or so ago, because again, I was out of my element, out of my zone, right? I wasn't able to control. What is an option for someone that is on a fixed income?
So, okay. So one thing is, by the way, you don't need to have the three on top of each other.
Correct.
So when you put the nighttime one, you could remove the evening one. The second thing is, if someone is like, okay, I'm on a budget, I could buy one frame right now, I would say get the nighttime one or the evening one. Like, it's non-negotiable. This is the time that is absolutely dangerous to be exposed to light, versus during the day, you could run away with it. Your body could go into an emergency response, and the body could survive that emergency response for a much longer period than if you were to be messing with light at a time when it's dark outside. So I would say the evening or the nighttime lenses. Another thing to be aware of is that, you know, when you are buying any product, at least for me, I ask myself, what am I supporting? And in the production of any product, for most of us and for the consumer, we don't tend to think about all the steps and the little things that it takes to produce something. But it all starts with the raw material of which type of material are you using. Is it material that is detrimental to the earth, or is it something that is thought through and that is biodegradable? Are the materials being sourced from ethical sources, or is there, you know, child abuse and all kind of abuse in third world countries, where the material is being taken? And on top of all of this, I mean, for most people, we say these are important things to us. We want a better environment. We want to take care of the earth. We want equality. We want to stand against practices that are non-ethical. But the truth is that those things manifest in very small things that we tend to not take a look at, and it's literally in where are we putting our money, who are we supporting. And if we're constantly scanning and looking to buy the cheapest thing in the market, that's good. But also, I invite always people to ask themselves a few more questions of like, where is this product coming from, and what's associated with the production of this product. And a third thing that is very important is, in the past 2 years, I've been very involved also in the production and quality control of the lenses. And what I can tell you that when the lenses are produced, no two lenses from the first time will come out similarly in the way they're blocking and allowing light. And for most manufacturers that are doing the fast job, they just don't care. It's orange, it looks orange, it's great. But not all lenses that look orange are actually doing the same thing. Two same lenses could have the same color, but if you do a test on them, what you will realize is that one of them could be blocking exactly what it needs to block, where the other one could have a lot of leakages. And that means that it's allowing a lot of spikes of light across the whole spectrum that it's not supposed to allow.
Yep. I think that is very important when we're looking at the lenses, for sure. Well, Roudy, I know we talked about an hour, so I want to be respectful of your time because we're well over that hour. But I knew I told Sherry, I said, I've heard Roudy speak several times. This is probably going to end up and go closer to the hour and a half. So I appreciate you. As always, it's great to connect and, have these type of sessions. I am so passionate in regards to the light and circadian and stuff. So I appreciate you. Any final words? I know I put a link in the chat for the VivaRays with the discount code NILES10. You have several other products on your site beyond just the blue blockers. I mean, you've got anywhere from earplugs to sleep masks to, the list goes on, right? Headphones even. Yeah. And we didn't even go into the whole EMF thing, but that's a whole other realm, right? But I do appreciate you. Any final words that either of you would like to share?
Yeah, I'm also really fascinated by your passion and how much you have learned in such a short period of time. So that's amazing. And not only how much you have learned, but the most important point is how much you're implementing what you're learning. Because I see today all kind of people so excited about learning information, and information is not knowledge until you take the time to distill the information and digest it into your consciousness so that it becomes part of you. Then you can't call it knowledge. It's just floating information that you can't do anything with. So yeah, congratulations for learning and implementing. That's amazing.
Thanks, Roudy. And yeah, being able to teach it back to others, learning for yourself is one thing, but being able to teach it to others, which is what we do in our community. I have an intuitive step meeting that goes specifically into this realm, because it's one of those things. It's almost, in my opinion, which is also why we kind of created the community, because the light and the rest of our environment is almost more important than the food that we're putting in our body. And so being able to, kind of shift this paradigm in regards of, I don't necessarily, care what label you're following as far as, your nutritional plan, whether you're carnivore or whether you're paleo or anywhere in between, but also how we're adapting in our environment as far as the light goes. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And in relation to last words, really what I want to say is anything in nature, anything that is substantial and strong is simple.
Yeah.
Just remember this, that complication and complicating things really weaken the system. It weakens the way you function and the way you show up in the world. So keep things simple. And if you want to take two simple things from all this conversation is get your morning sunlight, block artificial light at night, and slowly there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to learn in between, but keep things simple.
Absolutely. Simple is best.
Yep, I know I'm living proof of all of this. Just a little background quickly before we sign off and let you go. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I struggled many years. I got into the keto realm. Nothing happened for a year and year and a half easily, and until I went beyond, and that was the earthing, the grounding, the blue blockers, the solarized water, the EMF. When I started stacking all of those practice, was only then was I able to see results and able to come off my type 2 diabetes meds. So I'm super passionate about that because I do believe I'm not the only person in this world that struggles that way. So what you have done with VivaRays is wonderful. And I personally, and Becky, we thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Yes, absolutely. Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Roudy. Appreciate you as always.